Right on.
Wow, y'all. Give it up. Give it up. We here. Okay, y'all. We here. We here. Wow, y'all. I just want to say what a blessing to be here with one another on a Saturday talking about reparations. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for attending this event. Just for us to show proof that people in this city care about this conversation. We care about thinking about total transformation in the city. And so again, just want to say thank you for being here. You could have been anywhere else. Thank you all for your patience as our team was setting up. I want to first give a shout out to the owner of this store, of this business, my mother, Tracy Henderson, Miss Liddell. Miss Liddell and Liddell Shoes has been such a supporter of this work, a supporter of me and my dreams. I'm her daughter. But I'm a born and raised local North Vallejo girl who is also a researcher, a scholar of, racial inequality and the economics that are really needed to get our people where we need to go, which is full liberation, full sovereignty. And really, this is our time. This is our conversation to really make that possible, reparations. So I want to let you know that we serious. And it's about to go down with this conversation. Hey. So thank you. Woo! All right. And it's really not about this. It's really about y'all. Because we had our first conversation in May talking about reparations. And that conversation was an overall history of what is reparations in the United States, internationally. And now this conversation is really meant to hear from you all. What does reparations look like for Vallejo? Because we are in a political moment right now, right? So can you hit that next slide for me? So I just want to say welcome all. We are being COVID safe, so we have some masks in the back. We got hand sanitizer. There's also restrooms on site, so please see us in the back. So yeah, just welcome to the space. Next slide. I want to first do a labor acknowledgement, right? Because again, we are coming into this society new, right? I mean, we got to do things so different. And something I want to do different here is to acknowledge the labor of our people, especially of Black folks. This is why we're here. We're talking about the lack of recognition for the contribution of our ancestors to building up this country. So I want to give a labor acknowledgement that we honor the legacy of the African diaspora and the Black lives, knowledge, skills, and labor stolen due to the violence and the evolution of white supremacy culture. We acknowledge that much of this country's essential structures would not exist if it wasn't for the free, enslaved labor of Black people, and that many people of African descent are still being met with the violence and killed today for simply existing. That's right. Wanting to acknowledge our ancestors, this is why we're in this room. So many lives that need to come out in this process, and really want to hear from you all. So I want to acknowledge all of our ancestors, the labor. Ashe. Next slide. A little bit about me, us, this whole movement, formally titling this Operation Reparations 707. Again, I'm born and raised in Vallejo, California. I left 8 years ago to attend UC Berkeley as a first-generation college student. I went to Berkeley, received my BA and a PhD in geography from Berkeley. But while I was represent. But while I was at Berkeley, I was so detached from Vallejo, right? So many no youth from Vallejo being at Berkeley. And so it really was for me to, how do I figure out how to use my research, my skill set, my statistical analysis skills, my GIS mapping, and really understand what is going on in Vallejo. Because somebody is not telling the truth all the time, you know what I'm saying? We are celebrating 10 years after our city declared bankruptcy. So really, Operation Reparations is coming together to get specific and to really understand what is Black people's relationship to the city. So that's the history of Operation Reparations and why we do these events. And again, the mission and purpose is to contribute to the AB 3121 task force, which is the statewide movement in Sacramento right now to give all Black Californians reparations for their ancestors, right? So let's give it up for that. the state of California, we have the opportunity to get reparations and demand them for our ancestors right now. And I want to thank our partners in crime, CJEC, who's going to be representing. I want to shout out our partners, ARC, who will be representing. Also want to shout out Bawapa Solano Napa chapter, who is amazing Black women organizing political action. These are all the Black entities in this town that are getting this conversation started. And so I just want to say thank them, because it takes bravery and courage to really get these conversations started and having them follow through, especially at Sacramento. So thanks to those folks. All right, so the purpose that we're gathered here today, again, is to listen to one another. In this journey of me and all of us and all of the people who support this work, it's really important that we listen to each other. So really going over what is reparations and the California Reparations Task Force. And then the bulk and majority of this conversation is to share community testimony, to share narrative, right, about why reparations is needed, particularly in the city of Vallejo. I wanted to give pause to my partners, ARC or CJ, to kind of explain. Can you put the next one? Oh wait, come back. Go back.
Yeah, we're gonna bring Shannon up now.
Okay, Shannon.
And then go to
Okay.
You want to
So
go
Shannon,
to this?
do you want to? Hi everybody.
Hi.
It's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hey, everybody. You can hear me good, right?
Yeah.
Keep going. There you go.
All right. So my name is Shanna Kim. I am born and raised in Berkeley. Always lived in the Bay Area, stayed in the Bay Area, family here, as well as here in Vallejo. So I thank all of you for being here today, welcoming us. And we're going to have a good discussion today. We're going to walk back to your home, share with everybody about what you learned. That's the purpose, sharing and learning. So I am one of the many leads to CJEC, and that is Coalition for Just and Equitable California, as well as ARC Bay Area Chapter, American Redress Coalition of California. And we are grassroots organizations that are entirely working for reparations. I can't emphasize that more than what I just said. And reparative justice here in California. So just to kind of give you a little insight of who we are, give you a couple of fun facts. In 2020, CJEC and ARC helped write the final version of the California Reparations Bill, also known as AB 3121. And some of you may know or not know that was authored by then Assemblywoman, now Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Rutledge. Okay, so AB 3121 is the country's first reparations task force. So just take that in, learning on that. 2020, prior to 2020, there was no reparations task force, whether it's any state, even on the federal level. As of today, California is the only state in the union that actually has a reparations task force. So all of you here today is part of history. No matter how small or how big you think that is, we're all here witnessing this great work. Okay, so fast forward this year in January, CJEC was actually selected officially as an anchor organization in support of the task force. So we're one of 6 anchor orgs, and part of our role is to host listening sessions such as this and to report back to the task force of your concerns, what your stories are, and so forth. Okay? So the purpose again is for everyone to come together, whether it be your own personal stories, anything of your history here in Vallejo, even in California. This is the place to share that. Okay? So I am going to pass this along to Carol. Okay. Yeah.
Thank Thank you. Okay, let's give Sister Shauna a hand if we could. Okay. Okay, so I'm old school, paper works for me. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carol Toliver, and I live in Alameda County. I'm one of the lead organizers of CJEC and ARC Bay Area. My task this evening is to answer the question, what is reparations? Well, first, I'm gonna tell you what it's not. Reparations is not a handout, it ain't welfare. Reparations are not a payoff to cover up for some perceived wrongdoing. And reparations is not a loan to be paid back somewhere down the road. What reparations is a method to repair the multitude of harms done to African American descendants of U.S. chattel slavery and free Black folk, also known as American freedmen, here in the U.S. before 1900 and still impacting us today. Reparations are substantive actions taken to correct harm done to every specific group of people. In this case, African American descendants of persons enslaved in the U.S., in other words, most of us. The language I'm using comes directly from the general United Nations approach to transitional justice, which is where the language of AB 3121 is derived from. First, there's restitution. That means to replace what has been stolen or brutally taken away through slavery, Jim Crow, and lynchings, as well as intellectual and artistic properties that were stolen from us. In my mind, this includes what I call modern day lynchings, where police and other racists murder innocent Black men with little or no consequences, the current voter suppression laws spreading throughout the nation, and other inequities spread throughout most of our major structural institutions. Now let's talk about compensation. Dollar bills, y'all. Cash, money. That's what I'm talking about. Like Brother Chris often says, if it ain't no compensation, it ain't reparations. Come on now. The short version, cut that check. Okay? Cut that what? Yeah, that's right. That's what I'm talking about. Moving on, we must consider rehabilitation. This includes the non-financial benefits from the criminal justice system to the healthcare system, and that includes our mental health, to the educational system, to the environmental system, hell, every systemic entity in America today. Satisfaction. This includes, but hear me, it's not limited to, the removing of racist landmarks, replacing them with statues and other heroic symbols of the civil rights struggle, the locating of disappeared bodies, including assistance with their recovery and respectful reburial, and the rewriting of our textbooks so the entire history of America is taught. Lastly, I will talk about guarantee of non-repetition. This guarantee must be backed, endorsed, and enforced by the federal government through legislation and policies. We want this codified into law. We don't want this to be revisited and overturned 50, 100, ever, like we're seeing with Roe versus Wade. So, just want you to know, the commission is working hard to come up with a plan for us. One thing I will ask is that everyone in this room take the time to share with your family, your friends, and your neighbors the information you hear tonight. And don't think the task force is playing. They definitely want to hear from us. Filling out the survey you will hear more about later is a direct line to the commission's ears. So thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for being here. I'll now turn the program over to one of the lead organizers of CJEC and the hardest working man in reparations.
I don't deserve all that.
Oh, much more, brother.
Thank you so much. Great job, Carol. Great job, Shannon. Great job, Kirby. Thank you. I mean, y'all look so good here. It's so good to see y'all. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. All right, so I'm Chris Lawson. I'm going to continue and just sort of pick up where Carol left off. And talk a little bit more about what reparations are, what they're not, and then also talk about the California Reparations Task Force and or Commission. We will use the words task force and commission interchangeably today, and I'll tell you why. So we were doing some community work in Sacramento on MLK Day, and we was going out, and we was handing out some of those reparations cards that y'all got, and we were saying, hey, brother, sister, here's a reparations task force. There is one. This is what they're doing. And we walked up to a brother. This was in Oak Park, Sacramento, on Martin Luther King Boulevard, and the brother said, man, brother, with all the probation I'm on, the last thing I want to hear about is a task force. So we immediately started to change up our language. Right? So we'll use the words task force and commission interchangeably. Again, reparations. What are reparations? But before I even finish all that, I want everybody to pause for a second, stop what you're doing, and recognize where you are, where we are. Shanna alluded to this earlier. Every single one of us, and my team has heard this a million times, every single one of us, every single one of you is sitting in the history book right now. Every single one of you and one of us is sitting in a history book right now. They're going to be reading, writing, and talking about what we did during this time, 50 years from now, 100 years from now. And that is because California is, as was mentioned, the first state ever to create a reparations commission to study and develop reparations. And California will be the first state to actually do reparations. Okay, so put your hands together for that, please. I want you to know where you are. Okay? You are literally living and sitting in a history book. Let me get back to what I got to get to and also turn it over to you, because really this ain't about us talking to you today. You'll have questions about some of the things that we ask or say. That's fine. But it's really about hearing from you. So what are reparations? Carol did a great job talking about that. Carol also did a great job of talking about what reparations are not. I'm just going to add a couple of things to what reparations are not. So reparations are not benefits, programs, rights, services that go to all people, or what are universal programs. When we're talking about reparations, we're talking about something specific to a specific group of people. Okay? So things that are for everybody are usually not reparations. They may be still good things to do, still things you should support. But usually when we're talking about general, everybody gets this programs, everybody gets this benefits, that's not reparations. And also what's not reparations, and it's important that you understand what's not reparations, because we're going to be talking about reparations a lot more. What we call equity programs are not reparations. Okay? So there's a difference between reparations and equity. There's a difference between doing things for equity and doing things for reparations. Okay? There's a big difference. Equity programs are good things to do. They help correct wrongs that are in society. Usually they're things that your government should already be doing for you because you're a taxpaying citizen. Okay? That's different from repairing a harm done to a specific group of people. That's very, very different. Okay? So I'm gonna ask my brother to go to the next slide. Just give you some more general information, and don't worry about anything. If you can't see the slide, no worries. Everything that I'm saying is either on that card that you have, or at our website, which is also on that card that you have also, by the way, CJECofficial.org. So everything is up there. Don't feel like you have to read. Okay? I'm not even gonna read really. So as mentioned, California created in 2020 the first reparations commission in U.S. history. The law was signed in, I believe, August or September of 2020, signed by the current Governor Gavin Newsom. As Shanna said, we actually worked on the final version of that legislation, and we actually helped get it passed. We were at almost every single committee hearing. We helped get the law signed. We helped set up the signing ceremony. And then we actually worked after that to help get people selected to the task force. The task force has 9 members. On that card that each of you have are the 9 members of the California Reparations Task Force. And they're right, their pictures are here too. I'm gonna go off the top of my head, so y'all will check me if I'm getting any of this wrong. First is the chair, Camila Moore. Actually, Camila was an organizer and an activist with CJEC before she was selected to the California Reparations Task Force. So that's the chair, Camila Moore. Powerhouse sister, 30-year-old Black millennial sister. I mean, leading the first reparations task force in U.S. history. I mean, there's not enough that can be said about her. Vice chair, Dr. Amos Brown. Some of y'all may be familiar with Dr. Brown out of the Bay Area, out of San Francisco. So Vice Chair, Dr. Amos C. Brown. We have Dr. Cheryl Grills, who is a PhD in psychology out of the LA area. We have Senator Stephen Bradford, who is out of the LA area also. We've got Assembly Member Reginald Jones Sawyer, who is, I believe, out of the Southern California area also. We have Attorney Lisa Holder, who is also on the Reparations Commission. She is, I believe, out of either the Middle California or Southern California too. We have, and then last but not least here, we have Don Tamaki. And as you can see, Don Tamaki is the only non-melanated brother on the task force. Don is actually important to the work of reparations for many different reasons. But as an American of Japanese descent, he actually helped his own people get reparations and was a really important part of a Supreme Court case called, it was a Korematsu. So the Korematsu case, Don was very much involved in that. Don is an attorney by trade. So that is, and then last but not least, Dr. Javon Scott Lewis of UC Berkeley, actually. Dr. Javon Scott Lewis is the final member of the California Reparations Task Force. The task force has 2 years by law to do 3 things. 2 years from the first day that it met, which was in June of 2021, to do 3 things. 3 things. The first is actually investigate or collect the evidence. Some people use the word study reparations. The second thing is to educate the public about what it learns. Make people aware. Make people know what's going on. And the final thing, and this is what a lot of us are the most excited about, is the task force has to actually create a reparations plan. So we talk a lot about what the problems are, right? Like, okay, this is what the problem is. This is what's wrong. This is what's going wrong. But what do we do about the problem? I say this sometimes. It's like we know a lot about the problem, but if we know so much about the problem, why nothing change? Why do nothing change if we know so much about what the problems are? So the final job of the Reparations Task Force is to actually create a reparations plan. Okay. Let me get one more slide here, brother. I think that we're going to get to the community testimony. I think I have one more. Go back one more. One more, maybe. Okay, no worries. Go forward. It's all good. I'm gonna go off the top of the head. So, last thing to say before we get into the community testimony and actually hearing from you. Reparations for what and reparations for who? So reparations for what? So there's generally 3 phases, 3 time periods, 3 general things that we are talking about reparations for. And this is according to the California Reparations Commission itself. First is the era of slavery. By the way, how many of y'all know that there was slavery in California? Raise your hand, okay? So there was actually slavery here in the state of California. You'll hear a lot, well, why y'all doing it over in California? Y'all didn't have no slavery.
Right?
Thousands of people were enslaved here in the state of California, thousands. Okay. Actually, so I'll say this too, this isn't in the notes, but the Reparations Commission has to do 2 other things by law. It has to actually release 2 reports. The first report is due in the middle or halftime, 1 year into its work, and the second report is due at the end of its work. The first report is out now. The first report is out now. By the way, you can read the first report if you go to our website, cjecofficial.org, hit that reparations tab, and you'll see a link to the report there for you. It's a long report, 492 pages. It collects all of the task force's work over the first year. The task force by law has to hold 10 public hearings, and it added to that 12, more than 12 now, community listening sessions. Okay? I'll get back to what I was saying though. In the first report, by the way, I'm doing actually, if y'all on Twitter, I'm doing a Twitter Spaces reading of every chapter of the report, Mondays at 7 p.m. So every single Monday at 7 p.m. We're on chapter 5 now. So if you don't have time to read 400 pages, and I haven't read anything 400 pages actually, I don't think ever, until now. So in the first report, we learned that going back to slavery in California, that there was slavery in California, not just before California became a state, not just in the period from 1849 or 50 when it was a state until the emancipation. But out of this report, we've learned that there was actually enslavement going on and slavery going on about a year or so after the Emancipation Proclamation. Still, there's a story about a young Black girl being trafficked and sold, actually where I live, in Sacramento County. A year or so after the Emancipation Proclamation, so like 1863, 1864-ish. Yeah. So there was slavery in California. So that's the first thing of what reparations is for, slavery in California. We have stories, and we actually work with people whose ancestors came to California enslaved, worked the gold mines, bought their freedom, were recaptured and re-enslaved right here in the state of California. So had it twice. Okay. Slavery. Then there's the stuff that comes after slavery, right? What you might call the Jim Crow or the Jane Crow, right? From the late 1800s until maybe the mid 1960s-ish. Okay. And then there's from there till now, okay? Whatever you want to call this. You could call it the new Jim Crow, whatever you want to call it. So those are the three eras, three things that reparations are for. And then reparations for who? Last thing I'll say. So the California Reparations Commission actually decided this year, actually, that reparations in California would be for two groups of people. First are the African Americans or Black people who are descendants of U.S. slavery. Okay? So if your ancestors were enslaved in this country, by this country, you are eligible and will be eligible for reparations in the state of California. And then the second group are what we call the free Blacks. Right? So some of our people freed themselves. Okay? Managed to free themselves. Okay? So if you were a descendant of the free Blacks who were here before the year 1900, you are also eligible for reparations in California. This is according to the California Reparations Commission. And actually, I want to give a quick shout out here, and then I'm going to stop talking. I want to give a quick shout out here to our team at CJEC and really everybody who helped us do this. We actually just got a law passed. The governor signed this law in June, late June, early July. And this law does something that hasn't been done before. So right now, or at least before this law was signed, there was no city in the state of California you could go to, no county in the state of California you could go to, no place you could go to and say, how many in the government records, how many African Americans are descendants of U.S. slavery? There was not a separate category of data collection for us as a specific group of people, actually nowhere in the country. Okay? The government and our governments use this broad category called Black/African American. And by definition, that means, if you ask the U.S. Census, if you ask our governments, it means anybody from the Black racial groups of Africa. That is how the government defines Black/African American, but that's not good enough for us. We actually are a specific group of people. So we worked for about a year and a half, 2 years with some folks in the governor's office to actually make California the first state to actually start collecting data specifically on African Americans who are descendants of U.S. slavery. And that's going to start in 2024, starting with the state's 2.5 million employees. So I want to give a shout out to our CJEC team, the ARCC team. We worked really, really hard on that. We had a bill to do it last year. The bill got vetoed. We came back around second time, and the governor actually added it to his budget bill. It's SB 189, Section 14, for y'all who are interested. SB 189, Section 14. So, all right, that's enough from us, because again, we are really here to. Right on. So just to give a little bit more info on that bill, and then we're gonna turn it over to y'all. The language, instead of saying how do you identify Black/African American? You will still be able to do that. And then underneath that, there will be subcategories. African American descendant of persons enslaved in the US, African Black, Caribbean Black, right? So it's like now we have specific ways to talk about us as a specific group of people. And if that's gonna matter, because if you're eligible for reparations in California, we actually need to know who you are, right? So, all right, that's gonna be enough for us here. I'm gonna actually get us started with the community listening. I think I have to pass the mic to Dion, and then Dion's gonna set us up with some community norms.
We need about 5 minutes.
Hold on. Okay, so
So
they're
after
gonna,
you do that, and I need 5 minutes to set up the community.
okay, we're gonna be passing the mic around. Is that okay? Yeah, we're just gonna be passing the mic around. So,
Okay.
I'm gonna pass the mic to Dion. Gonna get us some community norms, and then we're gonna get right to you. Thank you, y'all.
Like I said again, let's give it up for CJEC. They are literally here leading the reparations movement in the state of California. And again, really, that's our purpose of bringing, folks to Vallejo. We know that we've been isolated in this town. There's been so many things happening to us in this city that many people in the state don't know about. Even people in our own town don't know about what be going on here. So really, this opportunity for this community testimony, is to let the state of California know what's going down in Vallejo, California, who is the first state capital of California, with all the complexities of that and what that means. But this town, right, has pioneers in it, John Grider, folks that don't get acknowledged. But that's history. Things, again, happening today. And so that's the point of this testimony portion, is to have a discussion so we can build with one another and learn from one another. I want to bring up my two comrades, my sisters, who really have been supporting me in this work. They lead amazing work with Vallejo Together, a nonprofit out here, doing amazing work in Dove, developing organizing visions for everyone. I mean, I just want to thank these folks for supporting, and they're going to share some wisdom about how we need to have this discussion. You ready for that? Okay, cool. So the next slide. So we just have some community agreements for how this portion of things are going to go.
Thank you, Dr. Lynch. How's everybody doing? Just a temperature check. We're good? All right. So I'm going to read off the community agreements, and if you see something on there or that's not on there, that should be on there, please feel free to raise your hand so we can add to it. So the last conversation got really passionate. I'll say passionate about this topic. So we just want to make sure that we all respect each other, respect ourselves, and respect our stories. Also, because we have men and non-binary folks in here, one person, one mic. So make sure we have one person up here. They are having the mic, so we're not over talking anyone. We can make sure we hear them clearly and understand what's happening. We're going to agree to disagree. Focus on the action and not the person. So we're going to be talking about some hard topics, hard subjects. So we need to focus on that action or that story and not attack the person. And last but not least, please keep your shares to 2 minutes. I know we have some, I didn't want to say ministers, but we do have some long-winded folks, so please keep it to 2 minutes. Can we all agree to this?
Yes.
Is there anything else that we should add? All right, then I'm gonna pass it back to Dr. Lynch.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cassandra. Again, an amazing, amazing comrade. So as we get into the questions, again, it really is to hear from you all and hear about your narrative and who are your people? How did you come to Vallejo? And what has happened to you in this city? And what does reparations really look like? We talked about the different forms, compensation, rehabilitation. I mean, you don't go all into that, but really, if you do want to share, we have some questions to answer, right? We can go one by one as a community, or you could look at a question that speaks the most to your heart and you answer that question. But this is what we really want to discuss, right? So to go over the question, it is 1, tell us about your family history in California. how did you and your people get to Vallejo? You know, me and my people, we got here all types of ways, right? In what ways, second question, in what ways has your family and or community been harmed by slavery and racism, right? Because we have been harmed. Number 3, what has been the historic and current impact of that trauma, that pain, and loss in Vallejo? Again, there is a lot of unspoken pain, a lot of trauma in this town. And what has that impact been on you and your family, that day-to-day experience? Because that is what reparations is. We've lost a lot of time trying to fight this crooked system. Number 4, what will it look like, sound like, feel like for Vallejo to be a place where Black people can heal and thrive? Again, not just trying to stay in the past, but really thinking about what are the infrastructure, the tools that we really need to move forward for the next 7 generations, for the next 100 years, right? And another question is, what big advice do you have for the California Task Force on Reparations? And what are your biggest do's and don'ts for repairing harm to Black people in California, and particularly in Vallejo? I love that question because, again, we do not want no top-down, cookie-cutter, some man high up in the, up in Sacramento trying to tell us what our freedom and justice looks like, right? So what advice would you give to the task force, right? Again, this is an official listening session. What you will say here will be heard in Sacramento and will be a part of the deliberation process. So this is what we want to get into. You can answer all these questions. None of these questions you can speak from your heart. But again, let's try to keep it to 2 minutes per person. I'm gonna have a timer going in the back so you can look at me, and I'll let you know. But again, if the emotions and the spirit is calling you, take that space because we're here to heal and build with each other. And I'm gonna rely on my good comrade Chris over here because he's a master facilitator. Like I said, he's up and down the state. He's visiting Black communities all throughout this state and really listening deeply. Universally, it'll be in Lamert Park, it'll be in Sacramento. You know, Black people in the state are all going through the same things, right? So super excited to get into the conversation. And I'm actually going to ask for a brave volunteer to kick us off if you feel compelled. So I got 2. I got Miss Adra, then I got Miss LaShonda after. So you can actually come up to the mic and speak your truth if you like. So thank you so much.
Thank you. There are 3 harms that I'd like to talk about. I think the first one I'll start with is that when I purchased my home in was early 2000s, I was the first person to pay $30,000 over the previous amount that was expected for any house in that area. And it was I discussed with the realtor the black tax and this and that, and this history of, it felt like a racist kind of additional tax. So that's one. The second, I was selected along with 3 other Black leaders by the California Endowment of the Arts to build Black power in Vallejo. And there was harm done in our group, and we haven't been able to hold a restorative justice to restore that harm. And I just feel that that's a concern. If that's the place that's supposed to be building Black power and we can't restore harm, it's very concerning to me. The third thing is my brother, around the year 1999, was the victim of police abuse. He was tased 15 times, and his eyes were rolling around in his head. He wasn't able to speak properly, and that harm, I mean, I almost didn't pass UCLA. I was considering dropping out. My mom sat in the park, and they crawled around on their hands and knees trying to pull him back together, talking to him, eating dirt. He almost burnt the house down a couple of times, and it took many, many years for him to come back to being someone who could hold a job. He still has severe alcoholism, and it's been a major impact on on our family and on his personal well-being. And he's an amazing man, very articulate, creative, humble, 6'5", 300-pound individual. And to think of who he could have been, you know, when anybody meets him, they're touched by him. And to think of who he could have been if he hadn't experienced that. So that's a small smidget of the many, many horror stories in our family with the justice system, with the police, and with violence against one another, ourselves, and the external forces of racism.
Thank you so much for that. Sister, I'm coming to you. Everybody, you can come up or I can come to you. Come on.
Hi, my name is LaShonda King. I live in Oakland, and I was invited here by Dr. Lynch, who I met doing their undergraduate career at Berkeley. So I'm not from Vallejo, but I am from California. I'm originally from Compton. So my maternal family migrated to California through Minnesota by way of Barbados and Canada in the early 1900s. My paternal family hails from the sixth Black town established in the country, Boley, Oklahoma, which still stands now. We heard about what happened in Tulsa. They tried that shit in Boley. They lost their lives. So, needless to say, I have a little pride in my bones. So my background is very dynamic, but the main two things that I focus on is education and counseling. So as an educator and counselor, certain things are really important to me when thinking about long-term personal independence and also community interdependence, and also a self-reliance as a people. So I guess I'm addressing number 5, what advice I have for the task force. So 2 things, while there are many, many things that are really important, 2 things that stand out to me that I've noticed in living in 12 states is that home ownership and education and training are keys to, 1, fulfilling our Maslow's hierarchy of needs and being comfortable and sustained, and also community growth and sustainment. Even though our people were used as service members, we were denied. I was also a military spouse for 8 years, so we were also denied the opportunity to use the GI Bills that we so hard fought and earned. Thank you for your service. So, you know, our service members had to fight separately from other people. They were killed by friendly fire, which I don't call friendly fire very often. And even in present day military, you know, our service women and men are being sexually assaulted by other members, and their stories are not being spoken or properly adjudicated. So in thinking about things as an educator and a counselor, what are really important is thinking about establishing educational vouchers for college education, but also I have a cosmetology license, y'all, and that's more important than my 3 degrees that I have. So I'm very passionate about us having access to vocational and technical education. I'm where Booker T. Washington meets W. Du Bois. And also, being that I've been blessed to stay in this, my parents have the same home that they moved in when I was 1.5 and I'm 40. I think that home ownership is something that we really take for granted. And being in California, I've seen the lack of stability that people have when they don't get to stay in the same home. I think about, like I said, I've lived in 12 states, partially military, partially school. And when I go to states like in the South and I see people that have lived in the same community for 20 years, 30 years, you think about the community, the ties, the loyalty, the support. Even if they go to school and come back, the network that they have and all those things, people are forced to live in low-income areas, have low-wage jobs, and do not have what they need to sustain themselves and create a community in the city structure. They don't have a community, they often feel isolated, lonely, and they deal with higher instances of like depression, suicide, alcoholism, drugs, you know, jail, recidivism, all the isms. So thinking about having housing cell vouchers that are not just like, oh, we're going to give you this, but let's make sure that it actually fits the county that the person is in, what their background is, and make sure there's actually something that can get them what they need versus just giving out like an arbitrary amount.
Brother, you want to come up? You want to?
What's that from? Hey, how's everybody doing?
Well, bro.
One of the things that I wanted to speak on is growing up in my household, having a mother and a father that was from the South, and having a grandmother and a grandfather that lived on the same plantation that they once farmed, and not being able to give the essential tools to my mother and my father to effectively raise their children, and wondering why did I have to go through what I had to go through, and then understanding much later as an adult that my mama and my daddy couldn't give me something that my grandparents couldn't give to my parents, and then having to make those adjustments as a result of that, and being just naive to life and not understanding who I was as a black man, as a young black boy growing up in the city of Compton, California, and not having a father present, having to supplement for that, and having these individuals say, hey, what's up with your little homie and this and that, and me trying to figure out what a man is being, and prescribing to that, and catching a life sentence, and doing 19 years in the pen. And in that journey, I had to really sit down and sit back and say, you know what, I can't blame mama, because mama used to be a little girl. And when I talked to mama about this in the midst of my change, and her telling me that my grandfather used to rape her, and saying, what, my grandfather? I learned about the dynamics that she went through as a woman growing up in the South, and not having that educational base, and then that being passed down to her kids, and realizing like, wow, it's not about me, it's about us, it's about what we've been through in life. And being a father now, after doing 19 years, and experiencing what I've experienced, and being able to take a knee to tell my son, it's okay, man. 3 years old telling me the police is behind you. Where do you learn that from? Where did you hear that from? And then have to be able to explain to him why we might have gotten pulled over, or why we are the focus of so many different attentions that we receive when we're in the store, when we're in the bank, or when we're in grocery markets and things like that, and saying, okay, this is real. I need to be able to let them know what's going on. And even now, being the executive director of my program, of my own program dealing with youth, these young brothers and sisters don't know the half of what's going on with them, because they're plagued with the same situation I was plagued for, because it's generational. And being able to explain to them, hey, this is what it is. This is what we're going through, but you have to stay strong. And allow me to provide you with a different vision, so that you can move down that path. It ain't your fault. And to be in that position, I really feel that reparations need to acknowledge the fact that we have so many bright, young, intelligent youth in the community that can't transition to college. Pay for that. Give them the opportunity to do that. And for the grandmothers that take care of these kids, to give them something so they can have a sustainable situation for housing for those kids to do what they got to do. I'm out.
Man. Before we get to our next speakers, I want to say one thing, a couple of things, and then I want to get back to you. By the way, what's the name of your program? Developing, organizing visions for everyone, DOVE. We want to make sure that was on the record. Wow. I gotta slow down right now. So Dr. Lynch mentioned that every single one of your testimonies and your thoughts is actually going to be heard by the California Reparations Task Force. Everything you say here will be included in a report that the task force is doing, or that the UCLA Bunch Center is actually doing for the task force, to be presented to the task force by the end of September, and will be released publicly. And so we're going to be sharing every single thing that you say here with the task force itself. And then the other thing I want to say is, it's already heavy in here, and it's going to get heavier. So, let's love on each other, right, as we're doing this, and just make sure that we are mindful that when we hear about our own lives and our own history, it's going to get heavy, And if you need to step away for a second, you need to take a break, don't feel ashamed to do that. Like, do that. Your mental health is as important as anything else. All right. Others to share? Maybe you want to come up, or you want to stay there?
I don't know.
Sorry,
See how long the extension is.
not stepping on the wires.
Also, we got, if you want some water, I could bring it to you or some.
Yeah, and if you need waters, raise your hand if you want water. We'll have somebody bring it over to you. I'm sorry.
Hello, brothers and sisters in this struggle. My name is Latricia Wilson Alford, and I'm gonna say JD because Tony Thurman tells me I never tell people, that. So I'm starting to do it. So that's right. Yes, I agree with the brother when he says slavery was in California. As a matter of fact, part of law school, I went to a really good law school and had a really progressive instructor who was actually the attorney for Angela Davis when she was arrested and when she went to the courthouse. And so he was very, very progressive. And he taught us that there was slavery in the Bay Area, and one of the places that was known to have slaves was Preservation Park in Oakland. And that they often, when folks often came to California, they would be in Preservation Park, and upstairs was the slave quarters, and behind, sometimes there would be slave quarters. Another point that may have may not came up is that when you talk about reparations, you can't leave out political power. Wawapa, and there's some of my sisters here, raise your hand. Dr. Lynch, Cassandra, in Vallejo, and Jackie. In Vallejo, Black political power has been really pushed away, or either not really. We've been oppressed, basically. And because when you look at the council, you only see, if you really look, if you follow political politics, you'll see one Black person. We never have more than one, and that's by design. But our numbers are high in Vallejo. One thing that Bawaka did was we worked with the Black Redistricting Hub, and we were the leads on the census. And so we hired people to go out and take the census because the census realized that there was a large undercount in Solano County, particularly in Vallejo. We found that Solano County, or Vallejo, had the second largest numbers of Black people, next to Barbara Lee's district. And Barbara Lee's district was just slightly above ours. And so in finding that, and many people here in Bawaka fought hard to have the redistricting done to favor persons of color, because we found out that the Black population was really low after you added in all our numbers. And we fought to get a district that was predominantly Black, Latino, and Asian. So in the work, what happened was it was done in a way that a Black candidate could not step forward for Congress, and that was by design. We were able to see, the numbers worked for Lori, who is our assembly person, because it also included a certain, areas of pockets of Black people. But what we did was we included Richmond in the district lines, which was another large population of Black folks. But for some reason, well, not some reason, we know what it was. They ended up they made it difficult for our candidates, the ones who did want to run, but
once we're ready to run, we're kind of pushed away from running. So I think Black political power is something that is so important when you talk about reparations. And because there's no, there's no, we don't have the representation, and there's no opportunity for us to. So the other thing is, I did serve for 20 years on a revolving loan fund. And it was through the federal government, but it was administered from the city of Richmond. And what Richmond intentionally did was make sure that Black businesses received the loans. The loans were so incredibly low, the interest rates, that it really helped a lot of different businesses. And then some businesses who couldn't pay the loans were forgiven. I feel that that's something that needs to happen here. And when I say revolving loan fund, I mean just for Black people, just for Black businesses. And so that's another thing that I think needs to be considered. And also, I'm gonna hurry it up, you guys. Another thing is, I did see an article in the New Bayview about reparations, but my family is from Bayview, just like my sisters, Bayview Hunters Point. And so we read the New Bayview all of our lives. My parents read it, they would read it to us, and then we start reading it on our own. And I just really feel that I think the Black media is involved, but New Bayview is a little different because they are very outspoken and they often don't follow the norm. And that's what we need. We really need that. And so I think what reparations, what they need to do is advertise in that paper because, they're struggling, but the people who really are the advocates, they turn to that paper. I mean, for us, it was our Bible. We read the Sun Reporter, but the New Bayview was the Bible, And so that's the other thing. I think that there needs to be some advertising in that. And then also, the last thing is, I think I heard something about curriculum and education in regards to that. And I know that before Dr. Weber left this assembly, she and Tony put together a task force to redo the curriculum. But I don't know if there's anybody from the reparations task force on there. And there really needs to be a couple of people on there. So that might be something that we could advocate, because the names I saw on there a long time ago, I didn't see any really, and I could be wrong, somebody correct me, but I didn't see any really what we would consider Black progressive people on there who will advocate this should be in the curriculum. You know what I'm saying? So that's my spiel. And then personally, I just want to say that I remember my mother telling me that when she was a young woman, she had graduated from high school, I think in '55, and she went with her parents to go vote. And she said my grandmother pulled out her wallet and she paid for her to vote, and she paid for my grandfather to vote. And it took me years to realize that was a poll tax. And I do remember, like in the late '60s, and this was after the, I guess the bus boycott, that as a little kid, I had to be like 4 because I don't think my other brother was born yet. We went to Texas and we went and sat on the bus, we got on the bus and we sat in the front. We didn't know any better. We was from San Francisco. And my grandmother, I remember her jumping around and trying to get us to come in the back. And, we just felt that we was free. We wasn't into that. And the bus driver kept looking at us. And my mother told me years later that my grandmother had to tell the bus driver, well, they're from California. They don't know no better. But you know, we would have fought. We would have fought the people if they would have sent us back. So I'm just saying that to say this. We got to just fight. We got to keep on fighting and don't take no for an answer and keep on going. So thank you all.
Thank you, sister. We get to the other testimonies here, and again, I'm gonna restate the questions for y'all again, right? So it's when, why did your Black family come to Vallejo? Okay. When, why, how? But when, why did your Black family come to Vallejo? What are the harms that you think reparations should address? What are the specific harms? Right? What has been the historic and the current impact of racism and slavery and loss in Vallejo? So what's the current impact now? Okay. What does it look like for Vallejo to be a place where Black folks can heal? Okay. That's the imagination question. And I usually ask it in this way. So if you snapped our fingers, boom. Now we got reparations. Look out the window. What does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? What's different? Okay. Let's imagine that. What's some advice that you have for the California Reparations Task Force? Others who want to give testimony? Brother, why you want to come up? Or you want to stay there? All right, come on up there. Come on up there.
I am a first generation kid from Country Club Chris. Okay.
From where?
Yes, Country Club Chris. Okay. Now, when my father first moved to Vallejo from Oakland, he was told that he couldn't move in College Park. They wanted to scale to 100 white families before to Black families. Now, he had 4 kids and another one on the way, so we had to move to Country Club Chris. Some of the things that has happened in Country Club Chris when I was a boy was that we are a redevelopment neighborhood. The money that was used for seed money to bring Marine World to Vallejo could have been used in Country Club Chris.
Come on now.
Yeah, we could have built schools.
Say it.
We could have built parks. But that money was given to Marine World on the things that we're going to bring jobs to the community. Minimum wage jobs. Yeah, so those are some of the things. Originally, when I moved to Country Club, there were streets with no street lights, no sidewalks. The parents, the men, the women, they formed a group called the Country Club Improvement Association. That group fought tooth and nail everything that we got in Country Club. My father was a vice president of that community, of that Improvement Association. He also was a community development commissioner for 8 years for Country Club Chris in the city of Vallejo. So it's been a long battle. My neighborhood doesn't have a good reputation. But when I was in Country Club Chris as a boy, there was 2 parent families. We did all kinds of things. And that's what I want to see in Country Club Chris now. Can we get back to those days? You know, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, brother. Others who would like to give their own testimony? Okay. Make sure there's nobody over here.
No, thank you. So question number 1 stuck out to me the most. So my maternal family, they come from Mississippi. And the reason that they, I know Mississippi is in the house, but the reason that they came out from Mississippi, my grandmother is a dark-skinned Black woman born in 1949. So California was less oppressive and had a little bit more opportunity for Black folks. And my grandfather came out of Philly. So California was the place for them to start a family, start a new life, and ended up landing in San Francisco. So I'm from Baby Hunters Point, born and raised, and my great-grandmother is considered one of the big 5. So they fought for like housing co-ops, fought for services for a particular community, Baby, which is similar to the Crest. I can no longer afford to stay in San Francisco. So the Black population had dwindled over the last 10 years from 15% to, I think it's at like 2.5%. And I had to move from a city that I thought I was going to live in forever. So Vallejo ended up, my grandmother was already up here. I come from a military family. My grandmother was up here because she wanted to be close to Travis, and also the groceries were a lot more cheaper. But when I came out to Vallejo, I thought that I was going to go back home one day. But 12 years later, I'm still here, and I was blessed to like give birth to the next generation. My boys are born and raised from the Crest. So when you say like when we have these families that are in here, we do have families that are in the Crest and are trying to change the narrative of what that is. And one of my biggest advice that I would have for the California Task Force is not just cutting the check, but also operationalizing reparations for communities that's like ours. So we want to make sure that there are those equity programs where we lead with equity to make sure that these programs will be in place for 400 years, because there were programs in place for 400 years that kept us from buying homes, that kept us from the quality education, that kept us from these other quality services that we have. And we know that it was supposed to be for all, like somebody said with the GI Bill, but however, those policies that were in place prevented us from those GI Bills. So it's not just about cutting the check. I would like a check. I got student loans. Y'all can figure that too. But it's more or less about the operationalizing of reparations and the operationalizing of equity to make sure that we have access to all of these services and all of these things, because they're not handouts, because everybody else was able to receive it and use it in order to access what they need to have quality of life services. So.
So as we get to our next testimony, I just want to also say that not everybody is going to be comfortable sharing their testimony publicly. That's fine. That's totally fine. You don't have to attend a listening session and give public testimony or community testimony for your stories to be heard. You'll see a couple links later. One of those links is going to be a link to either write your story, write your testimony, or record your story, audio, video, and actually submit it directly to the California Reparations Task Force through the UCLA Bunch Center. But you don't only have to go to the UCLA Bunch Center to submit your stuff to the task force. By the way, the UCLA Bunch Center, what's their role? Their role is to help coordinate the community outreach. But you will also and can also speak directly to the California Reparations Task Force. There's an email, there's a phone number, there's a newsletter, there's public hearings starting back again next month. There's public comment for the first hour of every single hearing. The hearings are 2 days each for one hearing, 8 hours each day. And for the first hour of every single hearing, it's public comments. You can actually talk directly to the task force members directly. So again, not everybody's going to be comfortable sharing publicly. That's totally fine. There are other options too. Having said that, does anybody else feel comfortable sharing? Come on. You want to come up there? Come up there. Come on up there.
I didn't know you were here. I brought that shirt. Good evening, everyone. My name is Theo Campbell, and I was born and raised in this city, and I have been here for 63 years. My father is a California Indian, so my people have been in this land before it was even California. We've been here for thousands of years. And my mother's family came here during World War II from New Orleans, and they identify as Creole. So my grandfather got a job working at the Benicia Arsenal and lived here in Vallejo, where they bought a home off of Springs Road in that area we call Bridgeside. So I grew up in Bridgeside and Beverly Hills and Millerville and College Park. So I pretty much grew up in predominantly Black neighborhoods. And like you were saying over here, These was families where there was a mother and father, and most of the time, just the father worked. The mother was at home, taking care of the kids, looking after us other kids, because we was all knew one another. And so I just wanted to say that, as well as, you know, the communities right now, we're dealing with a lot of police trauma. And unfortunately, there are not enough people that are involved in that. The same people show up to speak at city council. And so where is everybody else at when these black and brown people is laying dead on the street? Where are you at? You're not out there. And we need more people out there. So the only reason why there is going to be some type of reform, whatever that's supposed to mean, if you still got all these murderers on the payroll. However, it's because of the families keep agitating the city council and the Vallejo police. If we suffered in silence, we wouldn't be nowhere. They would still keep killing us. But we are standing up and saying, no more. Y'all need to get this shit together. You need to stop bending these badges. You need to fire all of these cops. Otherwise, there is no reform, okay? And we're never, ever going to feel safe if there are not any changes. So let's see, what else? I wanted to say something about systemic poverty in our communities. We know that systemic poverty is not by accident, it's by design. The deprivations of Black people and Indigenous people and our farm workers, that is all by design to keep us sort of like in our place and keep us oppressed, seriously, so that they can continue, white supremacy can continue to exploit and extract from our communities. And, you know, and another thing I want to say, and people might get mad at me, but sometimes I feel like the Black community is very fractured. And I see a lot of classism in this community. You know, I have all of the 63 years that I've been here, I have never seen so many Black homeless people. I've never seen that at all. And there are so many Black people that are living on the streets right now, and they got mental health issues, and they need assistance. And this is what I feel like reparations need to do. We need to invest in these communities. And so we don't have no more boys and girls clubs, and nothing for the kids, nothing for our elders, and nothing for us people that live in between them. There's nothing here. You know, a lot of the communities like in the Crest and College Park and all that, it's nothing out there but either a liquor store and the rest is all empty buildings. So we need to invest in these communities. And so that's what I'm looking at as far as reparations is concerned, investing in our communities. Now, you know, I know because of the way I look, I'm never going to experience anti-Blackness, because if anything, people might think I belong on the other side of the border. But no, this is my land, motherfucker, okay? But anyway, that's what I wanted to say, that we need to invest in our communities, and we need to stop with all this classism shit and look at our people out there that's living on the streets. Thank you.
I ain't even gonna have no words after that. I'm gonna go right to the next testimony. That's why, sister, you wanna come up with my sister?
This court was bad, so both of my courts just went
Hi,
down.
my name's Camila. I was born and raised here. I recently graduated from college at UC Berkeley, where I met. And I don't mean about UC Berkeley to say it's about UC Berkeley, but it was about the experience that I had there. And Dr. Kirby was one of the folks who really affirmed that the purpose of going into higher education was to be able to bring a lot of those resources back to our communities. So in my experience, you know, I was very privileged to be able to attend a university. And during my time there, it was a really surreal experience because so many of the people that I went to school with, that I grew up with, I actually, like Dr. Lynch, I was able to go to high school in another school district. So a lot of the kids that I grew up with were not the people that I ended up, seeing off to college. And so my experience of being in the realm of higher education, it was really a shock to me because one of the greatest illusions that kind of was shattered during my time there was realizing that they didn't know more than we did. They were spending so much of their time, our resources, our energy, our knowledge, our money to found an institutional jargon, right, for our lived experiences. And that was kind of terrifying to me, to realize that our ancestral wisdom was being sold back to us. And so at the same time, when I'm sitting in these ethnic studies classes and I'm having these debates with my white professors who are teaching me about my history that was stolen from me, right? People that I grew up with are being killed, are overdosing. And so I wanted to share some of my reflections about question number 4. Because I feel like as a student and a member of the community and a member of my family who was able to attend university, right? I think one of the greatest gifts that gave to me was understanding that it was my job to intercept a lot of these generational curses, right? And being able to share the language that I learned there, not just with my family, but with other folks in my community. And when I come home and I have these conversations with people that I grew up with, and I see something shift in them when they hear the words that they've been looking for their whole life to describe what was happening to them. And so as we talk about disrupting generational curses and we talk about disrupting intergenerational violences, I think that what healing looks like the most to me is being able to fund, being able to pay our way, into institutional spaces, but not institutional spaces alone, right? Into having access to be able to utilize the tools that are needed to regain this knowledge. And I think that always needs to be accompanied by a conversation about how, institutional education is not the pinnacle of our wisdom as people, right? But it's a gateway for us to be able to engage in this process of retrieval, of repatriation, rematriation, of restoration of all of our ancestral wisdom and our ancestral arts, and being able to gift that back to our families, to our lineages, to the places that we come from, and to the people who need us. Thank you.
Quick plug, and then we'll do a time check. We're gonna get back to you. So one, we in Liddell's shoes. Make sure you support Black businesses. We in a Black business right now. Support this Black owned business. I heard about business. I'm a business owner myself, so make sure you support the Black businesses. And then, so we're gonna continue to hear from you, and then we're gonna bring up some folks to do some calls to actions, and then talk to you more about what's going on here in Vallejo. And we got some folks doing some amazing work in and around Vallejo, doing things that you need to know about and that you need to be a part of. So, are there others who would like to share? Any others who would like to? Brother, come on up. Okay, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you. How's it going? My name is Dwight Monroe, running for Vallejo City Council, District 5. I joined in late, but I wanted to respond to question number 1 because I just felt like it was really something vital that we all should kind of know our history before we kind of know our future and everything else. A little bit more about me, Dwight Monroe. Family history. I grew up in Richmond, California. My family, I grew up in Iron Triangle. Some people know it as Triangle Court. I lived there for the first 10 years of my life. Moved to the Manor, which is Southside Richmond, after that. So I know a little bit about poverty and, equity in communities. then after that, actually went to Rodeo, actually moved to South Stockton, which I found is one of the worst places you can live for some people. I truthfully love Stockton. I have a little relationship with it where I kind of want to reconnect with Stockton and go back because I did spend like 2 or 3 years of my young life there, and I definitely want to know what the good things are about Stockton instead of just the bad things that people seem to highlight. Then come back to California, come back to the Bay Area, actually moved to the Rodeo projects, if you guys know about that. So I've had quite a little bit of an experience as far as poverty and living in different projects and things like that. But as far as my family, on my dad's side, my granny, she has one child, my father, Dwight Sr., and they're out of Richmond, California, but they came from Mississippi. I can't think of the name right now of the city. And then on my grandma's side, they actually came from Gould, Arkansas. So I want to go back there as well and just kind of see the family and just speak, with the family and everything because I'm 30 years old, so I know, they've been in Richmond for quite a while now. Grandma she was a writer she worked for the SF Chronicle, and she actually retired like before I was even old enough to even be thinking pretty much. But so I ain't never really even seen her working, but I do know she worked for the SF Chronicle, got us to Richmond, and it's just been truly a blessing. And then as far as getting to Vallejo, after all that, I moved to Marin County after the Rodeo projects, moved to Marin County, had my 8th grade and upbringing in high school in Marin County. And then my wife, I luckily found a wife, a woman that was willing to marry me. And, found a wife. We moved to Vallejo, California, and we've been here 8 years in October. And it's been truly a blessing. So, it's just a big circle. The Bay Area is quite, an experience in itself. But I always tell people if you can make it in the Bay, you can make it anywhere. And that's truly a fact in my thought process, honestly, because just the prices we pay, just the lifestyle we live, it's a little bit different. We go somewhere else, we like superstars. So you know what I mean? Like we show up and show out. But that's Vallejo. That's my history here in Vallejo. So I really feel like I've grown up as a young man here in Vallejo. I get a lot of flack for only being here for 8 years. I get these lifelong Vallejoans, and they're like, man, you ain't got no stripes. But I'm like, man, I've grown up here as a young man, you know what I mean? So I like to put some weight on that a little bit. But, we got more time, and bless Vallejo to let me win this election, and we can make some serious change here. And I'm glad I can join the discussion on reparations because I'm very interested myself. And just learning the process and really learning the logistics of it so we can really come down to a real solution and stop talking about it. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all.
Thank you, brother. Shout out to the young political candidates. We got another candidate in here somewhere too, don't we? Okay. Want to tell us what you're running for real quick? Hold on. Go ahead.
Vallejo City Council District 2, North Vallejo. So the Crest, College Park, Meadows, Rancho, all north of Vallejo.
Shout out. Put your hands together for all this. You heard about political power earlier. All right. Others who want to say, want to stay there? Okay. Sister, coming to you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Justice Alford. So I'll try to be quick about this. I'm going to answer number 2 and maybe a little bit of 3 in a way. So for context, I'm 28 years old. Grew up in Vallejo. So my story in Vallejo, I moved here when I was about 5 years old. I came from Oakland, California. And initially I was going to African Center School. So the school I was going to was called Ileo Mode. And there it was kind of almost like a repeat of what was going on at home. Just instilling love and light into myself, dance, music, languages. It was great. So by the time I came to Vallejo, I was in preschool and they put me right into first grade because I was already reading at an extremely high level, and that's the kind of school that you lay on all day, foster those types of students. So I come to Vallejo, and just about first grade, I went to Glen Cove Elementary, and maybe about 2-3 weeks into my first days at school, my teacher left her Pepsi by the rest of the kids. Mind you, we're 6 and 7 years old. I think me and her friends spilled it, and she ran over and told us we were stupid idiots. Mind you, we're 6-year-old babies. We were stupid idiots, and, you know, I just kind of shut down. I was just like, wow, nobody had ever really even called me that before. And from there, kind of nothing was really done. She ended up, fast forward, a student was in class, a young Black child, a boy, and, you know, was talking like we normally do. And she ended up like taping him, putting tape on his mouth, and nothing happened. And this is what happens at Vallejo. And your students are kind of, mind you, we're 6 and 7. So how do we really advocate for ourselves, and how do we feel open to even express that these things are happening in the classroom? So then, fast forward a little bit more, I end up attending Vallejo Middle School. And that was a pretty drastic change from the environment at Glen Cove, because although those things were happening at Glen Cove Elementary, it's a very happy-go-lucky school. You know, we were also having choir rehearsal and, you know, painting octopus and squids and having bug fairs and a lot of other things. So I go to Vallejo Middle School, and that was just a completely hot and total mess. Not only were there fights all the time, faculty was constantly kicking us out. Mind you, I was a talker, so that's not the worst thing in the world. But I would be belittled, you know, I would be totally kicked out. I would be lied on. Like, the amount of trauma that I had at that school is it's intense. I saw students get into fights and had to be airlifted away by helicopter. And this is early 2000s. I'm only 28 years old, so this wasn't that long ago. That in itself had just been really intense. And I feel like as a child growing up in Vallejo, there's not a lot of outlets for you to have. There's not too many things for you to do. All there is for you to do is to get in trouble, to be honest. To walk around with your friends, trying to maybe go to the movie theater parking lot. That's just about the most. Marine World, if you have the money, but most times you didn't have the money to go. I eventually, for like just services and to just get a better step. Well, no, that's not true. So in terms of Vallejo, what I was doing in the city at the time, there was a cheerleading, Vallejo Generals. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but they had a Pop Warner team for football and cheerleading for Black kids to go and do from young ages. And then around high school time, there was Willie B. Atkins. So Joe Jones obviously fostered a lot of like within our community and gave us a sense of self. Other than that, there was nothing really else for me to do in Vallejo. I had to end up going to Richmond, and I ended up going to high school there. I ended up going to a charter school, and I spent most of my time after that with services and opportunity coming from Richmond, California, not from Vallejo. So it's kind of shameful that I had to go across the bridge every day for school versus being able to come here. But, you know, the people that I did grow up with that ended up from middle school, I mean, they're not doing well. There's no opportunity here for them. So sometimes if I do see someone that I grew up with, I'm only 28 years old. Why am I bumping into somebody and they look already like they didn't live the hardest life in the world? You know, I could visibly tell you probably was on drugs or something. That's not right. You know, that's not fair. And I feel like young people here in Vallejo deserve more. And many times we end up just leaving because what is there for us? You know, what can we do here? What opportunities do we have? Many of us are thinkers in Vallejo. Many young people here have a lot of thoughts about what should be done, but there's no real vehicle to help with that. And at every moment when it comes to the school system here, it's almost like their job is to just squish Black students. Everything about them. I mean, I was coming here, you know, my mom had me doing book reports on the bluest eye and stuff as a young child. So I could read, I could recite, and I could tell them exactly what I knew. They couldn't stand for that. I was fighting with them. Or I was Actually, I had a story. I had a friend. She's white and black. She was like my best friend all throughout high school. And I had a teacher basically come up to me, my third grade teacher. I'm not going to name drop her name, Miss Ash. She pretty much came up to me one day and said to me, you know, you shouldn't be friends with her. You guys just don't seem like that would work out. This is an old white woman. And then she would go to her and say, yeah, you shouldn't be friends with Justice. You guys should kind of just break apart and end that. So you had different little things with people and their own inherent biases, like projecting that on kids. And these are the type of little nuances that happen within the school system that people are not really picking up on. And your students many times don't have the language or the words to be able to say, hey, this is what's going on and I need help. And other times, like faculty in the school, the support just wasn't there as well. So, yeah, that's just about it.
So we can take these one or two more. And then, like I said, if you didn't get a chance to share or you are comfortable sharing publicly, that's totally fine. You'll see a couple links soon that will let you share your testimony, your thoughts, your ideas with the California Reparations Task Force directly. And then also, you can talk directly to the task force. The task force is going to resume its hearings, start again its public meetings in September. The meetings are going to be in person and virtual also. They're going to be down in LA, and they're traveling from city to city across the state, okay, for the hearings that they are doing. Quick plug, also, I want to give a shout out to California Black Media once again, in the house. Black Media, I heard Black Media mentioned also earlier, so big shout out to California Black Media. And then I also want to just re-propose how we've been talking about reparations, because the California Reparations Task Force, by law, it's in the law itself, has to create reparations plans here in California that agree with the 5 international forms of reparations. So sometimes when people ask me what reparations are, I say, well, reparations equals compensation, restitution, rehabilitation, satisfaction, and guarantees of non-repetition. Okay? Those are the 5 forms of reparations. Okay? Compensation, restitution, rehabilitation, satisfaction, and guarantees of non-repetition. So, having said that, any other testimony? Sir, you want to come up here or you want me to come over there? Come on up.
So my family, basically, my father's from Georgia and Alabama. My name is Don Jordan. My father's from Georgia. My mom's from East Texas. I came here because of my wife. She's raised here in Vallejo, and said I want to raise my kids where my mama is. So ended up moving here 32 years ago. What ways has my community been harmed by slavery and racism? If anybody's read the 1619 Project, racism is embedded, and systemic racism is embedded in our society. There's no way of getting around it. Like Cassandra was saying, is we basically have to start with an equity system. The United States has to do the same thing that South Africa did after apartheid. We as a nation aren't willing to do that. And until we do that, until the majority population that rule this country decides that they have to truly face the history, the harm, and the destruction that they have done to the American people, because we're not slaves, we're not immigrants, we are Americans. And we were treated harshly, we were treated despicably, and until we as a nation face that history, will we make change? And that's what reparations to me is all about. Historically, the trauma, pain, and loss in Vallejo, the people in Vallejo, when I go and talk to people in Vallejo, is you can see that because they haven't gotten the services, and that's what it basically comes down to, is you provide services that my kids have to go to St. Pat's, or my kids have to go to Concord or Oakland or San Francisco, where the Black children stay here in Vallejo and get less. So how can we even start talking about the impact of trauma when we've never been on the same platform as everybody else has been in the city because they weren't a part of the trauma in the first place? The second thing, how this feels like. So for basically for me, for Vallejo to heal and thrive, we have to come to an understanding that city government does not work for us. It's not working for us. And the city manager, he's new, the city council there, but they are not dealing with the trauma that when these police shootings, to have people come to City Hall and speak for 2.5 hours and then tell them, oh, Section 503 says that we can't talk to you, we can't hire and discipline police officers. That broke my heart.
Yep.
She was cursing at me. That's what I love about her. She don't hold back. She don't hold back at all. The district elections. The district elections are our chance to see Black and brown people on the city council. The district elections are a chance to change what's going on in City Hall. The district elections are a chance to change the mayor, city manager form of government. Because if you still think having a weak mayor is the way for us to move forward, we're going to keep getting what we've been getting. What big advice do you have on the California Task Force? The biggest repair of harm for Black people in California, particularly Vallejo? I don't know. And I'm serious about that. Because for you, and I just came from a conference in Tampa, and he said, I don't want your charity, because that's all we've been getting. When they give us $5 million here, she knows they give you $100 here, they give you $50 here, they don't give you nothing. And these banks are making $200 billion. These companies are making, what's the big one? Amazon? They make more than some countries. They're profits. And then they come to the Black community and say, oh, we're going to give y'all $5 million. We're going to give y'all $10 million. Until we see investments in the Black community, in the Indian community, in the Hispanic community, until we see long-term 15, 20, 50-year investments where you're getting hundreds of millions of dollars, because we're not asking for a gift. We're just asking for what you already stole.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Power.
It's almost 7, bro.
So good. Let's take some more testimony. Let's hear some more for the people, and then we're going to get to some calls to action. Kirby, is that okay? All right. Can we extend a little bit?
What time is it?
About 7, maybe.
7 o'clock?
Yes, and we started about 15 minutes. Yes, maybe about 15 minutes left. Right on. Man?
Yeah, sure.
Come on to you.
Okay, hello, everybody. My name is Reverend Dion Carter. And I got to Vallejo. I was born and raised in East Oakland. My background is in public health, and my specialty is trauma-informed care. And so I ended up in Vallejo because I took a pastoral role out here, which I have stepped out of. But I did want to say, in what ways has my family or community been harmed by slavery and racism? This is the big issue, but I want to mention to you all the doctrine of discovery. That is the foundation of what is called Christianity, but was really white supremacy. And so because that is at the root, I think about, the Black church being a place where people get their services. But what she said about the class issue, because of the way that the Bible has been interpreted, it has really oppressed from white supremacy, and that goes to police killing Blacks, and then also the Blacks killing Blacks. And so I believe that my family and my community has been harmed by slavery and racism by interpreting the scriptures to further oppress Black people. And so until we're able to deconstruct that, until we're able to understand that that was one interpretation of a word, then, I mean, spirituality is such a big part of Black people's lives that we cannot depend on a white supremacist interpretation of the word. It has definitely, and I say that because my dissertation topic is really looking at the church failing to provide appropriate services to just mothers of murdered victims, right? And so I think about the class issue and how we look down. That comes from this larger white supremacist framework. And so I do really believe that the religious interpretation, and I love me some Jesus, don't get me wrong, but I also love my African ancestors' worship practices. And I have come to understand that in a white supremacist framework, when you're unable to tap into your ancestry because of this larger framework, it's oppression. And it's also very damaging and harmful to a people who move and breathe by spirit. And so what advice that I would like to give the task force on the reparations, the do's and don'ts, is to not depend on elitist Black people who look down on those who are from low-income communities. And that's something that, because I'm from East Oakland all day long, went to Castleton High School. But one of the things that I noticed when I moved out here is that there is a big division between those who think they have and those who don't. And so one of the things I think will be important for the task force to understand that they need voices of the people and not voices of puppets.
We're gonna make that the last testimony. That was all we needed.
We have benediction now.
Man. So we're gonna start to wrap up. We want to give you some calls to actions, give you some things that you can do, some ways to connect with some folks working here in Vallejo that's working on some stuff locally, and then talk to you a little bit about some of the work that they've been doing. So Kirby, I'm gonna bring you back up, or I think Kirby, or yeah, all right, bringing Kirby back up. Come on up, please.
Thank you. Wow, y'all. It's been a pleasure. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for being so open to sharing your truth. I learned so much just in this conversation about Vallejo. Like I said, I'm born and raised here, but I never went to school here. So a lot of things and the little nuances about Vallejo I really don't understand. And so again, thank you, Elder, for your wisdom. Thank you, Homegirl, for your school punishment, because we know Vallejo has a history, right? We have a history. So next slide. Again, CJEC and ARC are amazing organizations. They are our partners in this work, right? But do want to let you know that this event is not over, right? You have people in your life who are from Vallejo, and their testimony needs to be heard. And again, if you did not speak today, your testimony still can be taken down. So please take note of these links. We have a bit.ly link, bit.ly/Cali Reparations. And this is the link where you can actually write in a survey your thoughts, right? So maybe you don't want to speak it out, but maybe you just want to go through the online form. Please take a picture or notice of this link. It's also going to be on the postcards that you got in your chair. And again, if you feel more comfortable just recording on your iPhone, literally, if you go to voice memo on your iPhone, turn on the voice recorder, stop it, you can literally share that to a Dropbox or to a link where you can send it to the Reparations Task Force. They will convert it, transcribe it, and again, will be a part of the testimony and the record. We as a people have to get specific, you know what I'm saying? Black people, we are not outnumbered, we are out-organized, right? And so please take the opportunity to really understand your life history and the outcomes of your life, because I'm pretty sure it's rooted in systemic racism, institutional racism. And so we need y'all's life stories to really understand this California racism, right? So do that. But here in Vallejo, we are starting a grassroots movement to really, again, bring some balance to the Black political scene here in Vallejo, because as we have heard, there's a lot going on, and we don't know what's what and who's who. But we know that the power of the people is so powerful because we all are genuinely here because we want change, right? And so let's come together on that change. Again, please sign on to the sheet, the sheet with your email, because we actually are doing research. We're doing history. We're doing oral history. So please sign up for the newsletter to get up to date with the work that we're doing every month to further reparations. The Reparations Task Force is scheduled to go until June 2023. So we're moving, but also we're moving to expand it too, because again, 2023 is just next year. Well, we need, again, 400 years to really heal, right? So get active and urgent right now, right? And sign up for our newsletter. And also we meet every 2 weeks on Zoom, right? With other cities. Yeah, please join. Every 2 weeks on Zoom, we're literally just checking in about Vallejo and what's going on. You know, I feel like it's an emotional support group for all of us who do work in Vallejo. Those who organize in Vallejo, we know we need a space to debrief and decompress, so come join us. Again, I got a wonderful sister here who's a wonderful artist. We're going to start collaborating on some mobile history, doing some public memorialization work, because we're artists, we're scholars, we're everything. And we want to get this to the schools. We want to get it to the churches. We want to get it to your organizations. So please join us in our effort to historicize Black Vallejo and bring it to the folks, because we need the history, right? Also, vote in November. How many of y'all know there's an election coming up? Yay! Woo. Vote. If you need help registering to vote, please reach out. That's something, never feel ashamed if you never voted. You can get registered. We'll get you all caught up and all of that. And again, we have been follow us on Facebook, Operation Reparations 707. Again, that's where you'll hear about the next events. We're working on a partnership with the Naval Historical Museum. Shout out to Anna Bergman to start historicizing Black history, particularly Port Chicago, right? Who knows about Port Chicago, right? There's some Black history in this town right now. So that's the work. Follow us on Facebook to keep up. And also, I want to share with y'all a survey. We did a Black Vallejo survey. So if you go to tinyurl.com/Black Vallejo survey, please share this with your people that you know. Again, I have been a researcher in the city of Vallejo, trying to get some justice and accountability on that front, because, people try to act like, if you got degrees, you're better than everybody. So I was trying to flex my degrees, right? But girl, no, Vallejo was like, no, girl, you're not trying to have accountability and high level analysis and things. So I was like, okay, let me create a survey and just for me to share with you all what I'm hearing, right? I just want to let you know, we ask questions like, what programs and services do you believe will increase the healing in the Black community in Vallejo, right? So in our survey, just alone, I'm going to be having the survey out to the end of the year, December, so you have time to share it and get it out. But just so far with our responses, we see that the majority of Black people feel that life skills training would be something to heal the Black community. We feel that people think that we need seminars on political education, right? So we're hearing from the community what they want. We're also hearing that people want nutrition classes. How many times have we talked about the liquor stores in North Vallejo, right? We don't have access. We don't even understand how to eat healthy. So just alone, we can actually see for ourselves. We don't need nobody really telling us what is going on. We can do it for ourselves. And so again, please share that survey and keep up with this work, because once we're done with this survey, we want to compile it all and give this information to our city government so they know that we're serious. And not just our city government, but also Sacramento, that Vallejo, California is very serious about what we need to move and be healthy. Next slide. Also, we asked, in your experience living in Vallejo, what are some of the obstacles to getting involved in the Black community? We asked this question. The number one response is, it's hard to find out about events in Vallejo, right? People also say there's not a lot of safe community gathering spaces, right? So this is all the information we want to take to the city and be like, yo, reparations. These are things that you can, I know.
Talking but no action.
Who said that? Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, talking but no action. Black folks. All right, so we got to get into it, right? Another question that we ask is, In which of the following areas have you experienced challenges, right? And so the grand majority of people are saying that social activities and community services are lacking in this community. In grand majority, there's a lack of childcare and family services in Solano County again. So we're getting specific in our reparations movement, and we really want you to join. This is really a time to be alive, and reparations is a tangible policy agenda that us and our generation can come into and really control the conversation and direction. So next slide. I just want to again shout out to all the ancestors who came before us though in the city of Vallejo. Again, we have the founders of the Bear Flag movement up in here who founded the state of California. Shout out to John Grider and the Society of Pioneers, right? I want to shout out also to the NAACP Vallejo branch, which was one of the oldest NAACP chapters in the west of the Mississippi in California, starting in 1918, right? These are the founding members of the Vallejo branch, right? People who were the first Black folks to have mortgages. They created an organization called the Home Seekers Improvement Association. This is actually one of the first Black organizations filed at the Secretary of State in Sacramento, one of the first Black enterprises, right, in the state of California, coming from Vallejo. Also on the right, again, we have the Port Chicago Soldiers, dynamite high-level Black men working in Port Chicago and Concord, but they actually died in an explosion in 1944. We understand that the United States was moving into be a #1 weapons dealer, weapons of mass destruction, nuclear weaponry that Black men in Concord were shepherding in. But in 1944, they were killed. And I want to let you know that in August of 1944, it was Black men on Mare Island, 50 of them, who led a wildcat strike. And they said, oh, hell no. You let them Black men blow up. You deny them their services. You deny them their rights. These 50 Black men on Mare Island protested and led the first wildcat strike in military history. And this led to the military desegregation of the whole military, literally, because of Black people in Vallejo. That's why we need our reparations, because we actually led to military desegregation, right? So this is our power and this is our story that they don't teach us in our schools, that they don't empower in our youth, right? So you were here today, and you got the message, and you got the wisdom, and you got the knowledge. Please spread it to every single Black person you see on the streets of Vallejo, and let them know that something is coming, right? And it's liberation, justice, and unity. And I just want to say thank you all. Thank you all to CJ, ARC, my mom, shout her out with this. My mother has been an amazing inspiration. She's a 15-year business owner in this city. This is Black legacy. This is legacy. This is our family, right? This is Black people living for another 300, 400 years in this country, living a good life, not a life of terror. So really want to say thank you for coming out tonight. And let's stay in contact, y'all. Love you. Peace. Oh, call to action. Also, more. Yes. Also, y'all, you want to say? Also, shout out to Josiah Hub.
Hey, everybody. Glad to see y'all here and everything. Just wanted to say, please follow us, CJEC, on Twitter, as well as ARC Bay Area and American Redress on Twitter and also on Facebook. As Chris stated on Mondays, he's going over the interim report, each chapter. So just, for more information, follow ETM Media as well. We're trying to make sure everybody can know what's going on and how you can get involved. And let's do this together. Thank you.
Yes, more. Yeah. And then one more. The next event, tangibly, that y'all can come to, September 24th. Please reach out to Sister Ascar. We are doing a Black Lives Matter mural in the city of Vallejo. We're going to need all hands on deck to help get that up. September 24th through the 25th. You can talk to Ms. Ascari about getting involved in that. We need all volunteers. Black Lives Matter mural. And again, good night, y'all. Peace.
The way it currently stands, forced labor, slavery takes precedence over rehabilitation and public safety.
Oh, by the way, while the Biden administration gives reparations to everyone but free people, look at the billions he has run over to Ukraine.
We don't have Black grocery stores because if you think about it now, just to get in that supply chain,
it's almost unheard of.
They don't want the truth to get out. Okay? I don't want to know what my family did or what all these people did and all this stuff like that. Okay? You read that 500-page report.
There's this thing called white superiority and black inferiority. That mindset allows all of the behaviors that we've seen across generations, allows for the construction of these policies and practices and systems and structures that continue to oppress us. This is not a handout. This is a debt that is owed.
You know, Allensworth was like the internet of its time in 1904, 1905.
The total black population in California is about 2.6 million, and then of that, the descendants compose about 2.2 million of that. So California, with a multi-billion-dollar surplus, can absolutely afford to satisfy the international terms for reparations, beginning with compensation.
Any financial obstacle that exists that impedes the success of increasing financial prosperity needs to be dealt with and eliminated.
No matter where we've been, no matter what part of this fight we've been in, we've been harmed, and we've had harm done to us specifically.
When I got to Los Angeles, this was some of the worst segregation I'd ever seen. And remember, I'm telling you, I'm from Mississippi.
Because as you can see, I'm giving you broken history right now, you know? But I had to give it to you guys today. I said, no, I got to show them this because it's so precious and nobody really knows about it.
Black people don't have that kind of luxury. Our historically black communities have been redistricted multiple times.
Now listen, if you can't handle the TR roof, don't tune in.